Al-Haytham said no. Let me look at their theories, and he changed he did experiments. The experiments proved that Galen and Euclid were in error, and he created the first correct theory for binocular vision. And the Greeks said that the eye shoots photons out. Al-Haytham of Egypt said no. The sun sends particles into the eye that gets transmitted into an image at the back of the brain. He was the inventor of optics, absolute.
Ibn al-Haytham and his student Kamalu ad-Din teamed up making history again when they first observed the basis for the modern camera, the obscura phenomenon. The obscura phenomenon, defined by Webster's dictionary as dark chamber, usually is a cardboard with a tiny pinhole. This was the foundation for the camera. Another branch of Arab learning was medicine. Hospitals and pharmacies were developed by Muslims in the 8th and 9th centuries. The first hospital ever built was in Baghdad in 706.
Wooten said that pharmacy was discovered and turned into a science by the Muslims of Spain, by the Muslims of Baghdad. They produced the first pharmacies. There were 80 pharmacies with licenses to practice pharmacy. They created distillation, calcination, sublimation. These are technical pharmacy terms. They created the ability to make drugs. They used alcohol by distilling it from grain into a purified form in surgery and to cauterize wounds, and also to take extracts of herbs.
The early Muslim concept of the hospital became the prototype for the development of modern hospitals.
The original hospital, in terms of a scientific hospital, is exclusively an Islamic production. It had a bit of a model in Persia. The Christian monks and so forth conducted a hospital, but turning it into a scientific institution with a botanical garden, with a nursing staff, with charts on each patient, with medical students in tow, with accurate record keeping, with scientific studies, taking 50 patients and testing half with a certain herb, half with something else, testing bloodletting to see if it really worked, for example, which Ar-Razi did and found it working for meningitis. That's exclusively an Islamic production. In fact, the hospitals were so popular for the Europeans that they would fake illness to get into the hospitals, the magnificent hospitals in Cordoba, in Cairo, and in Damascus.
One of Europe's best medical schools in France was founded by Arab doctors. Islam's influence on Europe was indeed responsible for the escape of Europe from the Dark Ages. Briffaut, in his book, The Making of Humanity, states, "It was not science only which brought Europe back to life. Other and manifold influences from the civilization of Islam communicated its first glow to European life."
The development of Hebrew grammar and scientific theories of linguistics and philology really developed out of the Islamic world, because the Muslims were the first, really, in bringing scientific ideas of linguistics to the study of scriptural text in the Quran.
Islam cannot clash with Western civilization.
Well, the whole question of whether Islam is in clash with Western civilization, it can't clash with itself. It is Western civilization. It produced the first Western civilization in Spain and Sicily and in Italy. It produced the sciences. It produced the post office, the bank, the check, the airmail system, the first one. It produced the use of mathematics to do computerization ultimately. So when we take a jet, or if we do a math class, or if we're on a computer, we're Islamic at that point.
From the 8th through the 13th centuries in Spain under the Muslim Moors, some of Islam's greatest thinkers revolutionized Christian scholasticism. Some of those are Al-Farabi, Ibn Sina, Ibn Hazm, and Ibn Rushd. Ibn Rushd, known by the Latin as Averroes, was a philosopher, an Aristotelian, and an author of some of the most influential medical works. Among Ibn Rushd's followers were Jewish thinkers, who called him the soul and intelligence of Aristotle. In fact, Jewish philosophers such as Ibn Maymun, known as Maimonides and Avispron, who were the main glory of Jewish intellect, were students of Ibn Rushd.
Maimonides is a powerful example of a great Jewish leader and contributor to the general world, both of Judaism, Islam, and even secular culture as well. Maimonides, of course, was the first Jewish physician to the Sultan of Egypt.
There was a kind of de facto collaboration between Jews and Muslims and Christians in scientific endeavor during the Middle Ages.
Islam enlightened the world with spirituality and social and industrial sciences, and added to the Judeo-Christian world a 1.7 billion Muslim population who adored and revered Jesus and Moses and all other Israelite prophets.
We have a world which is so small. We have people of all faiths living in all places, and we have the opportunity to learn from one another, to make friends with one another. Used to be it was separated by geography, but the geography is no longer separating us. Now, Christians are living all over the world, Muslims are living all over the world, Jews are living all over the world and interacting with each other.
I believe positive-minded Muslims, Jews, and Christians have an obligation to work together. The word salam clearly is related to shalom, and for us that means in the Hebrew wholeness, peace.
I tell them that a tree cannot live without a root, and the root of religion is love.
We all have a responsibility to listen. As a people, we can't go back to segregating ourselves. That we must come together more regularly, that is something that will feed us, and for tomorrow to be a hopeful tomorrow rather than a fearful tomorrow. This is the only way to be.
All religious communities, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, are forced today to re-examine those early points of contact and to reclaim the best of those points of coexistence and rationales for coexistence that exist within the tradition, and to build on that in the 21st century.
I think that what we have to do to get together is have humility. All of the faiths have to have more humility. Let's start a new crusade of comradeship,
لنبدأ حملة جديدة
friendship.
والصداقة.
We're in the same camp.
There is a place for acceptance of other religions within monotheism, within every expression of monotheism, but you don't always see it.
We are friends, and we love one another and help one another. We are members of the same family, sharing the great grandparenthood of a pair of people, Adam and Eve.
It's absolutely critical that Muslims and Christians and Jews work together in order to understand one another better, because the essence of the divine will is really the same between all of us. There are so many parallels, religious, social, moral, and ethical, in the three monotheistic religious traditions. It seems just a shame that we haven't done a better job of working together. We're all part of the same family, and we really have our differences. Sometimes those differences are substantial. Very often those differences are really quite petty. It's absolutely critical that we learn to be a little bit more generous and respectful of the other, so that we can learn to live together and to work together on common cause.
I think when we draw on the best heart of our faith traditions, we have the resources from God that we need to achieve peace and to live at peace with one another. And isn't this the desire of everyone who is a lover of God, is to live at peace with God and at peace with our neighbors. And the dynamic interaction between these religions could perhaps reveal something new in our own age that no one has discovered in ages past. It's a threshold to a brand new reality, and I believe it has God all over it.
During this film, we have taken you on a journey from the Prophet Muhammad's teachings and the birth of Islam through the Renaissance until today. Without Islam, the world as we know it would be very different than it is today. Islam affected major spiritual and social changes and was responsible for a multitude of inventions, forming some of today's languages, our own numbers and mathematical equations, hospitals and pharmacies as we know them today, commerce and trade, and countless other achievements. Europe's recovery from the Dark Ages might not have been so successful or even possible without Islam. Columbus would have never made it to the New World. Islam gave women dignity and rights that they never had before. It leveled the educational playing field and gave everyone the opportunity to learn, to attend higher education and universities, and it opened the way for everyone, regardless of religion or gender, to better themselves, hindered only by their own level of ambition and desire to be successful. Islam and the Prophet Muhammad also restored peace in Arabia and beyond. This was possible through his lead by example, by his rational approach in dealing with the matters he faced, and by his character. Islam's teachings are the same today as they were in the time of the Prophet Muhammad. Over 1.7 billion Muslims are drawn to Islam and Muhammad's teachings for this reason, as well as spirituality, justice, a strong belief in God, and countless other reasons. They are just as inspired by the teachings of Jesus, Moses, and Abraham as they are in Muhammad's teachings. Islam transcends barriers, building fraternity between all people, whether they are Christians, Jews, or other ethnic or non-ethnic communities. It should not be surprising that Christians and Jews can read about Jesus Christ, Moses, Abraham, and all the prophets of the Old Testament in the Holy Quran. It is true that the messages of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are different, but at their core, these religions are closer than you may think or want to think, but there is no denying of what is true. Peace builds human dignity and is also considered a victory. Pope John Paul II said, "Everyone knows that violence always spawns violence. War throws open the doors to the abyss of evil. War, therefore, must always be considered a defeat of reason and humanity. Thus, may there soon be a spiritual and cultural impulse that will induce people to ban war. Yes, war. Never again." Christians, Jews, and Muslims all teach about a global peace, loving their neighbor, and accepting of others who are different. Let's all, whether we be Jews, Christians, or Muslims, learn about each other's religions, not so that we can see the differences, but that we can rejoice in the similarities.